I made a negative video a while back, and I decided afterwards that I did not want to be a negative YouTuber. Not only that, but I've been trying to be more positive in game. In fact, I once heard Matterall say something like, there was once a study where they found that one guy with a bad attitude could bring down the productivity of an entire group. And he was using that to contrast against CCP Guard in order to say how amazing he was and how he had such a positive effect on other people's morale. Of course, I'm still very much a work in progress, but I am trying to be more positive. And when I catch myself being negative, I try to adjust course. So I'm facing a bit of a dilemma here. I realize beforehand that what I have to say is negative and concerning a fellow player and not the game, but I also think I spotted a real problem. So how do I handle that? Do I say nothing and hope for the best? I mean, possibly I could be wrong, but on the other hand, if I am right, the potential consequences could be significant, affect the entire player base, and be long-lasting. Naturally, this isn't an easy decision for me. Ultimately, I decided to proceed, but I set some guidelines for myself. First, I'm not going to be a sensationalist. Matterall might disagree, but I'm not going to try to present a one-sided argument, make it an energetic video with entertaining graphics and menacing music playing in the background and all that. Second, I am going to say some good things about the guy. I do honestly believe that he has some redeeming qualities, so I'm not just going to say Matterall sucks and then call it a day. Third, I'm going to try and help fix some of the problems that we both agree exist. And finally, I'm going to run this video by some level-headed people that I respect beforehand and ask them if I should release it. If they say no, I'm not going to. Alright, let's get into it. First up, I think Matterall has a good attitude and a great personality, which would probably go a long way towards helping him develop a rapport with the devs. Now, he's not a subject matter expert, but he does talk to an absurd amount of people from varying backgrounds, which exposes him to different perspectives, values, and ideas. This helps to give him more insight into the problems and desires of the player base because he's not just limited to his and his in-group's perspectives. Finally, he has some really good values. I don't always agree with his ideas mechanics-wise, but I do really like his values. Now, all of that being said, I have a problem with what he's doing to try to get elected, but more on that later. First, I want to make sure everyone is up to speed. Alright, the CSM uses a ranked voting system known as the right system. It works by having voters rate candidates in order of preference. Then, if your preferred candidate doesn't get enough votes to secure a seat, your vote gets transferred to your second choice. And so it continues until one of your choices does get enough votes. But there's also another interesting mechanic to the system. Namely, extra votes for winners aren't wasted. They'll still retain a portion of every vote they receive so that they still end up with just enough votes to get elected, but the remainder gets passed down to everyone's second choice, and then the process repeats. On paper, this is awesome, because it means that your vote isn't wasted if your first choice doesn't win or already has enough votes to win. Your vote, or at least a portion of it, always gets passed on to your other preferred candidates in order. Naturally, this results in a remarkably representative body that everyone is happy with. In other news, I'm dating Aubrey Plaza, and I totally did not shit my pants with an alarming frequency while I was in my addiction. Anyway, the major nullsec powers game the system by trading votes. Basically, they say, you put my guys beneath your guys on your ballot, and I'll do the same for you. And once they've done all their vote trading and whatever other metagaming stuff it is that they do, they tell their line members how they should vote. The result is a CSM that is dominated by nullsec. Of course, it's not all their fault because other areas of space have lower voter turnouts, but that's a problem for later. Right now, I'm concerned about Matterall because he publicly stated that he's going to ask for as many favors as possible to get on ballots. And if he wins, this is going to have serious ramifications. I mean, if Matterall's strategy works, we're going to start seeing other candidates do it. This will seriously hurt grassroots campaigns, create conflicts of interest, and give even more power and influence to the null blocks. For example, candidates elected in this manner are going to face a serious challenge in trying to maintain their independence when the body is already packed with the eyes and ears of guys who helped get them elected. Every time there's a conflict of interest between their personal priorities and the desires of the null blocks, they'll face a choice. Do they play ball? Do they keep the kingmakers happy and keep getting put on ballots? Or do they stick to their guns and be one and done representatives? So this is the reason why I believe Matterall can't be elected, because if he wins, it can lead to a future where every last seat on the CSM is either from a major nullsec power or is beholden to one. I realize some people might say I'm blowing the problem out of proportion, so let me present to you Matterall's own words. Even he believes that there is a problem with the election system and lopsided representation, and he responded to it by publicly stating that he was going to ask for favors and that his CSM picks were, at least in part, strategic. In other words, he chose a course of action that would serve to exacerbate a problem he believes exists in order to achieve his own goals. Let's have a listen.
The CSM is supposed to be a player group, not a partisan alliance group. Yet all the representation is powered by loyalty to an alliance. But I just see it as an analyst that the system seems kind of broken for what its purpose is supposed to be. It seems like the incentive structure to get into CSM is now no longer for players at large, ad hoc players. But I think it's very interesting because what that does is make the pressure applied to CCP fairly one-sided. I'm going to ask for as many favors as I can to get on ballots. There's just no other way to scrape it together. So
I've never done recommendations before, except maybe Suetonia. This is my personal list that I'm putting out, partly because I have to be strategic, but also because there's some people I actually believe in.
Now, I'm not saying Matterall doesn't care about the game, because I honestly believe he does. In fact, let me stress that. I believe that Matterall truly cares about this game. But here's the rub. Ambition has a way of rearranging people's priorities, and it looks like that's what happened with Matterall. I wish I could find it, but I once read in my Government 1 book that politician priorities are, in order, re-election, political power, and the good of their constituency. Naturally, this made me want to start flipping tables, but I digress. What I'm trying to say is that blind ambition is a real problem for some people. It can actually override their values and good intentions. Anyway, I don't know for certain yet because I haven't seen any null block ballots, but I suspect Matterall has been engaging in some quid pro quo with other candidates and groups. I know some people might get on my case for speculating without proof, but remember Matterall himself said that he's going to ask for favors in order to get on ballots and that he normally doesn't make recommendations, but that he's doing so this time for strategic reasons. So I'm willing to bet that at least some of his recommendations are due to quid pro quo and possibly even the majority of them. It's a strategy of I recommend you, you recommend me, / put me on your ballot. Of course, I do think that the good of the game did play at least some role in his ballot order. Like, I can't explain why, but he really did seem sincere to me when he recommended Azuki's. That being said, I can't help but think that his recommendations might look a little different if he wasn't running. The CSM is supposed to be for the good of the game and the player base as a whole. It's not meant to be just for the good of nullsec. It's not meant to be another mechanic for them to metagame in order to accumulate advantage. And yet, that's what they're doing. And if Matterall wins, it's only going to make the problem worse. Various candidates are going to start knocking at the doors of the various kingmakers, and when they win, it's going to create conflicts of interest for them. Apparently, the analysts have calculated that nullsec already has 8 seats locked up for CSM 14. Let's not give them indirect control over anymore. Let's try to keep at least a few seats responsive to the values and desires of the people and not have the entire council advocating on behalf of the game's superpowers. Okay, I'm a centrist in real life. I am left to center, but I have a distaste for both political extremes and I don't straight ticket vote. Now, that's not a problem when it comes to the major elections because I watch the news and try to keep up with current events. However, where I live, we also elect a butt ton of judges and school boards, trustees, and other turds that I know nothing about. So I turned to my local paper for recommendations because they recommend the best candidates regardless of party affiliation. And ideally, I'd like to do something like that for the CSM. After all, CCP makes it really easy to vote, yet a lot of players still don't do it. Of course, I'm sure plenty don't care, but I remember not voting in my first CSM election because I had no clue who to vote for. So I'm willing to bet that there are other players in the same boat. So perhaps if I can make it easier for players to find the right candidates to vote for, more people will cast ballots. So that's why I'm announcing that I will never run for the CSM. In a world where content creators are willing to trade favors and endorsements in order to get elected, the only way I can ask people to trust that my own endorsements aren't strategic is to declare that I will never run. Now, I may regret this decision. I know it's going to be a bunch of work and it probably won't get seen by a lot of people, but hopefully I can make the game better from outside the CSM. Hopefully I will be able to get a greater diversity of candidates elected and drum up enough support for reform so that CCP is forced to respond. As for this year, I'm getting started way too late to give this the amount of time it deserves. I am still going to make my cheat sheet, but it's going to be more surface level. Like, I'll probably just put this sort of information into blog form. And I'm going to try to do better in the following years. My goal is to be informative, concise, and hopefully trusted. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I am tired of feeling like unwilling collateral damage. If you feel the same, you can take action to try to help. First, vote in your CSM elections. If you don't know who to vote for, ask the people you know and trust who they are voting for. Second, don't vote for the Bloc candidates. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely some good ones running, but they don't need any more help getting elected, and I assure you, nullsec will still be overrepresented. So vote for those who represent other areas of space and playstyles that you enjoy. And if you still have slots left over after that, try to toss some love to another region or playstyle that's underrepresented. Third, tell CCP that you want reform. Make your own posts and threads and upvote others that call for it as well. Honestly, I don't think CCP cares that much what 20 people think, but 1,000 will probably get their attention. Oh, and as for the guys who want the CSM disbanded, know that you are not helping. As long as CCP's chosen people support the institution, it will remain. So when you advocate for disbandment, you're functionally acting as a spoiler. You split the vote for those who are unhappy with the status quo, thereby ensuring that the status quo persists. We all know that your first choice is to get rid of the CSM altogether, but that's not going to happen. So what's your second choice? For things to remain as is or to see reform? Finally, I made another video about the CSM where I discuss why the CSM matters, but in it I propose a possible solution to the representation problem. Now, I don't think it's perfect, but I consider it an improvement over the current situation. But I don't know. Perhaps you can propose something better.